the military is reporting that they have fallen short of their recruitment goals, and they're having to look more in the direction of social media and other forms of marketing in order to keep people interested in joining the military and sacrificing themselves for the system. So there's a number of things that I have to say about the matter, and in fact I have for years. There's a video where I'm actually megaphoning the military recruiters in Portland, Oregon back in 2010, and I've had a fair amount to say over the years about people that are minorities that join the U.S. military under the illusion that things have changed for them in some way because they're serving the military, overlooking really what the U.S. military and various imperial forces have been doing to their homelands for numerous decades, in some cases hundreds of years. So there is that phenomena of people that join the U.S. military in almost a sense of, well, if you can't beat them, join them, and also out of economic reasons. Plus, the 9/11 event has still to this day rallied Americans together of various ethnicities to come together to fight the common enemy of the day. But that's not the same thing as those people actually getting together and developing respect for each other. When you have a system that creates a common enemy, anti-themism comes about. It's more so an issue than any specific form of racial supremacy. This area, this concept, this idea that I share with you now that is born out of the ashes of the post-September 11th, 2001 world, anti-themism, a coalition of people that literally joined the new welfare state, the military, because you are dealing with a system that is going to be paying people out for their killings, for their services. And I've also been involved in alternative media for a number of years. Thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people have come across my content. There was a time in which there was, I believe, a veteran of the war in Iraq that was consuming my content, but it was short-lived, the period in which I knew him. He had severe cases of PTSD, and I believe even his girlfriend was blaming me and my show for escalating, I guess, some of his behaviors, which wasn't the case. He had his own issues that come from the war, but often people are angry with my content, trying to wake people up. Now, what I believe is a solution for a veteran who suffers from PTSD is compassion for others, maybe some remorse for the things that he's done. I mean, there's a reason why these men are sick. And this isn't a system, this isn't a society that has yet come to face the realities of what it's done to innocent people around the world, regardless of your views on 9/11, but even within the official story. Then why do millions more need to die? And why does this even have to be mentioned? Why does this conversation even have to be, why does it even need to be discussed and brought up? And so we live in a world where they tell you how many of your boys die, but not really the focus on how many innocent people overseas are dying. You live in a world where the innocents are not counted. How is that different than a mass grave? I mean, once they're gone, in my opinion, right? But if they're not remembered, if they're not counted, how is that different than burying all those Afghans, Iraqis, others in Yemen into one mass grave, just filling it with dirt and walking away without saying a thing? There are some people who believe that that's ultimately a good thing, even though they don't come out and say that overtly, either on their YouTube channels or in some other way. So there has been a subtle brainwashing that has been taking place within this nation. You know, social media is one of those places in which the social media indoctrination takes place. Even among people that think that they're awake, that may have been anti-war before and anti-drone attacks before, and all of a sudden they believe things have changed out politically, and they're no longer talking about those people as if they care. As if they care. Or as if they cared in the past. And that's a philosophical question. Did they ever care before? When there were anti-war movements and people being against what was taking place, did they care then, or was it more of a fad? Hey, the protest is going on downtown, Jennifer. Downtown, Jeff. You want to go downtown to the protest where the cool kids are? Then maybe go down and have a Guinness or an IPA down at the pub afterward, shoot some pool. Oh, hell yeah, Alex. I'll be down with you marching. And, there was that time, what was his name? Steve Baggs, old friend of mine, actually made his own comic book. And that was like a highlight in his moment that he bumped into me and met me at the World Can't Wait anti-war rally in 2007. And there was a sense of us marching together. And I have kind of talked to you guys about the almost, although it's really all an illusion now in hindsight, but the sense of the people being unified together and marching together, because that's literally what we were doing. That literally felt like magic. That literally felt like we were unstoppable during a period in time. And then I went and did some of my own rallies with some 9/11 friends, and there would just be 10 of us during a few days in 2007. And it felt like we were unstoppable, that we had the ability to change the world for the better and wake people up. And there was a time in which I remember when people were receptive to that. And then there's some time that has passed, and we see the new demonization of the person that questions that day, and how we ended up in these wars, and whether these wars are just. And we have these various mental health crises, not only regarding the veterans, but regarding people within our own country and the mental health providers, and in many cases, psychiatrists, the media, fill in the blank here, mainstream doctors, the so-called intellectuals and professors of our world. They don't want to hear from us, the grassroots. But our outside-the-box perspective is valid. And don't you ever forget that. It may take many, 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 many years for the people of this continent, of this society, this global society, to come to terms to what they've done with what they've done to the Middle East. There's multiple countries that helped destabilize Afghanistan, by the way. When they had more rights in 1960, the women, than they do today. And this was under an Afghan government that was not controlled by the Taliban. But of course, that's Afghan history, and somebody would have to be interested in what happened and what life was like there before the Russian invasion, instead of just siding with the Russians in the left-right, east versus west controlled divide. They've all worked together, as far as I'm concerned, to destabilize the Middle East. And this is something that a lot of Westerners deny, because a lot of people just don't care. They don't have that heartfelt compassion to see even China's role in it, as they funded the United States and what it's done overseas. So people would ask me back in the day, Alex, why do you even cover this stuff? The potential of a World War III clash with the East. How does it relate to these things? And I would try to explain to people, if someone came across one of my films, although I haven't yet made a great documentary that I think is great that covers that scenario, I really would like to work with someone that has the same passion, but I haven't been able to find people that see the same thing coming about, and they're actually motivated to argue against its possibility. And many people are, out of fear, out of ego, but also that egocentric mindset that has actually attached itself on a collective basis level to the collective of the U.S. military, even if they say they're against it, by saying constantly the U.S. military will constantly be the dominant over China, is to project an arrogance, which is traditional to this culture. An arrogant military, and an arrogant economic system, an arrogant Western mind that thinks that the Tower of Babel will always, that this Tower of Babel will always remain in its current position, without some entity or some other external force greater than this system altering it. You know, there may be some truth to that on a level, that they are ultimately holding the cards above China, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to use China to create a major disturbance, to whip up the masses into a violent frenzy. You see, they want to recruit. We have a solar minimum, but they have a timetable, I believe, for a world war within the next few years. 2021 to 2022, we will likely be seeing major action moves at that time between the major superstate nations. These skirmishes that you're seeing in Syria are warm-ups between Russia and the United States. They're nothing but warm-ups. It's not the real deal. Recent articles about Russian incursions, again, into Alaska, barely worth mentioning. We're just being numbed and desensitized to a certain degree, but we should be aware of it. This is escalating. Even though it's numbing to be bombarded with it, don't let yourself go numb. Don't let the cry wolf bombardment syndrome cause you to turn out or tune out all information sources. There is a time to step back from news. I've stepped back from a lot of news in recent months. I used to run a news site for somebody else ever since I lost that job, because I compromise myself. Just because things have changed in Washington, I'm not going to assume things have changed. And so I've gone my own way, and I do my own thing in the alternative media. And I don't think that I have a lot of peers out there in the independent media. Even if Google and YouTube recommend that there is similar content out there, I think that it's not wise to try to, even out of convenience, put everything in one category. It's not like it's the music department and you can just easily put stuff into, you can put stuff easily into the category of classic rock, but there's going to be like a great difference between the sounds of particular bands and message. Or you can just look at the category of rock in general, or pop, or country. Just very diverse, but put under the same category. But does that really describe? Only on a level. So independent media, that's not the mainstream media, is really the only thing that binds some of us. Now we actually get down to content, beliefs, knowledge, whether or not there's actually a secret bias there or a political agenda. That is where the great difference in the actual reality of the content comes from. So you can actually look at a number of channels, and if you have a certain level of intelligence, you should be able to determine in a pretty short amount of time if they're an actual truth channel or not. And in my opinion, right, they're actually reminding people that the wars aren't over and people are being still removed from the earth that are innocent, not involved with trying to invade your life or do some harm to you, even if they're a member of a certain religion. Then there's people that aren't Muslims at all, but they may be part of, living in Muslim countries. So there's also those people. Some people are a little bit more aware of, for example, the Christians in Iraq, things of that nature. So there's been stories about people deported that are actually Christians, that are not a part of the Islamic religion. And so it's really important for people to look outside their own bias, even their anger against immigrants, and even see situations to where people that are American citizens, people that have actually never been outside the United States, could get caught up in all this mess. There's actually been a guy, he deleted his YouTube channel. We're talking about all this mess. We're talking about the age of paranoia. He deleted his YouTube channel after I gave him a shout out. I'm not sure what happened. He was already talking about psychic attack. He was talking about paralysis, even things that somebody may say are impossible, like actually being attacked and choked, which is not something that I hear a lot of. So he was actually describing real poltergeist level issues and other things that seemed to be indicative of someone that had a certain level of sight, and he seemed to be new to opening up. And it seemed that when he opened up and he shared levels of his sight, he must have come under some kind of attack. I don't know if he was trolled. I don't know what the deal was. I added him to my list of recommended channels. Some people, when they come out on video and they're talking about kind of their awakening, they may not know how to deal with the energy that comes back at them. And he was a white guy that talked about being marginalized as a Middle Eastern terrorist for running somewhere with a vest. People called him in and said that it looked like he had a vest on, but of the other sort, not what was the reality. The reality is, yes, he had a vest on, and yes, there was stuff in those pouches. There were weights for exercising. You understand? So he had a bulky vest that looked of a certain appearance, and people freaked out on the dude. Well, I think that there could be reasons why someone could suffer some unfortunate luck, regardless of their ethnicity. There could be a part of them that's waking up, and they could be out there in the world, and then the Agent Smiths of the world, of course we went into the supernatural, but we'll try to bring it back to the military, but it is connected. The Agent Smiths of the world, that, there might be an element of them, maybe a spiritual attachment that can see his light and see his glow, and they're going to do something to smack him down, from dream invasions to other forms of intimidation, because they may not want him to wake up, and much less be waking others up to what he's waking up to. So I tell you what, there's a real fight out there between good and evil, and it's not being done through the uniform. There may be situations where we really need the U.S. military. So, obviously, in short, I've talked about this for years. What they've allowed some of the criminal behavior elements of the U.S. military to engage in, including sexual assault of female detainees, either in Iraq or Afghanistan. A lot of people have been talking about the pedogate stuff for years. In my mind's eye, I've been picturing a lot of those things happening to those people and being disappeared. And then, of course, the black prisons. And I haven't seen the same type of uproar against sexual assault of those people as much as people make about rumors about pizza parlors in, say, Washington, D.C. Also, I think human trafficking of white people will get worse in the future. So people that are supercharged on the ethnicity thing, the decline of our superstate by design with acting politicians to by design allow the rise of China and Russia is probably one of the greatest threats to future Americans and to some future white Americans. The sex trafficking that I see increasing. So a lot of the buzz around some of the things is designed as part of the cry wolf bombardment syndrome. Because, you know, if they mix truth in with fiction, add in some hamburger gate, ice cream gate here and there, things that aren't maybe necessarily legitimate, then a lot of people won't be concerned about the other stuff. And then some people just take the stuff and they run with it because certain terms and keywords are profitable on YouTube. So it's become like a big time business for people to be talking obsessively about certain issues. But again, I won't see them talk about what's been happening to other people around the world. And that is important. You may not see that as relevant. I do. I see it as relevant. If people are only talking about people in a certain part of the world or think when it's documented that other things have happened, then why just demonize this group of people when there's obvious stories of sexual assault that were coming out during the Bush administration? Even the early Alex Jones would go detailed into some of those reports. And that's where I woke up to some of this stuff. Again, the old Alex Jones as opposed to the new Alex Jones. And so those of you that are listeners of his that are still kind of on the fence with some of this should remember what was said in the past. You can even look up where he was doing the whole bit with the iPod, and he was torturing it, saying people would care more about an iPod being tortured than people overseas. That's the ultimate hypocrite. When you see how he kind of marginalized all the immigrants as playing that male rapist role and then going to the caricature, and I highlighted that on this video, that's wrong. You wouldn't want it done to you. And if you saw it being done to Americans in the future, whole-scale demonization, it'd be like you woke up in a dystopian movie. And I'm telling you, the robot apocalypse that has so many people obsessed on these things, sure, it's coming, but its rollout can be seen in Afghanistan. Its rollout can be seen in Iraq. Now, you have to understand there's two actions here. There's the action of it being rolled out, but the second action is as active as the action, and it's the silence from the population. It's the silence from the population that seals the deal. America's fate is created by Americans. It's the nature of the natural world. It's universal law. It is natural law. That's what scares me about America's future. It's what they're doing to others and remaining silent about even the people that aren't directly doing it. So we have the wives that are supporters of the dominators. We have the people that are looking the other way. We have people more concerned about the troops with PTSD and their personal problems as opposed to what home and village and family that they personally destroyed. So I'm not, going overboard when I say that people overseas have been lower to that of a subhuman. And there's been a lot of racism, unfortunately, towards blacks, towards African Americans. But when even they participate in the racism against those people in order to elevate their own self-esteem or other minorities, and I've seen this before. I've seen minorities use the N-word against people of African American heritage, and that's horrifying. Because, and a lot of them felt more comfortable doing this before 9/11, but it was like, like getting one leg up in the white man's world where you got to use their language, derogatory terms. And we're talking about those that believe in supremacy. And the other thing that I'm going to say is only those that actually have the supremacy ideology would be sensitive to me exposing it. Only them. Otherwise, it doesn't apply. Otherwise, there's no need for defensiveness. And this is the level of psychology that we need to understand. If it doesn't apply to you, then don't worry about it. Over the years, I've said that even if I disagree with someone's logic, for example, of going in a particular direction of Obama or Donald Trump, because I've been critical of both, it doesn't mean that person is inherently bad. They're just mistaken. That person is genuine and is here to bring change, we can believe it, and make America great again. And you really need to mix the slogans together and see also the similarity in the number of syllables. Change we can believe in. Make America Great Again. There's a parallel with even the rhythm. And it's like, I'm not the person, I'm just the person that's showing you the parallels between that. I'm just the person that's showing you the parallel of how the colors look with the Obama rally and how the colors look with the Donald Trump rally. You know, I made that music video. We went back to Barack Obama's rally, Donald Trump's rally. And the music, a lot of video has been deleted because it was copyrighted, but it was by Grandmaster Flash, Survival. It's called Survival. And only the strong will survive. It's called Survival. In order to stay alive, it's called Survival. And the lyrics go, the problems of the world today are bigger than life. You have depressions and recessions. Men are cheating on their wife. Babies born each day with part of their body parts gone because of some crazy drug that their mother was on. And on and on. And it's like, you know, you really look at the pimp hoe politics of the street, it does match the political scene. And I guess there was a movie that was supposedly going to be about that, and I don't know if it was ever released, but if it is released, if you do know what I'm talking about, let me know. If there is, it's not Down the Rabbit Hole, but I thought it was the sequel to What the Bleep, or it was related to some of that. But the point is, you have people out there that are willing to pimp themselves for money, for the bread money. And it is an excuse that, you know, there's a lot of criticism of foreigners in general when it suits someone to do that. But the criticism is pretty custom tailored. So my criticism would be those people that have escaped certain places that have been bombed back to the Stone Age by the U.S. military-industrial complex. And they think they have found their freedom by serving the system. Or other people that are the descendants of indigenous people that don the uniform. It is the ultimate form of welfare. And it needs to be discussed. You know, I believe in forgiveness to a certain degree. And I have made myself available in the past for veterans of foreign wars to be a friend of mine. And there's something about who the real I am is, the real me, and something about what they really experienced when they went overseas and went through that programming. And in some cases, they took the steroids or they earlier Gulf War syndrome, breathed in various types of gases. Some of these people have been straight up genetically modified. And some people have some serious demonic attachments. That's why some people, you know, they may be happy to be out, but like they have like the Skull and Bones, the Punisher, Death and Destroyer mindset in them for life, just like a gang tat. You know, some people might just be bombarded with all they went through for a cycle, and they're ready, though, for another go. That's why they have multiple tours for those people that can do that until the system breaks them. And it's designed to break them, and it's designed to break the U.S. military and create a boogeyman, really, out of the U.S. military. So where will the military be if we ever do need them? If we ever do need our boys? So over 10 years now, I've talked about this scenario. And it's the idea of the military being destroyed. And we would read articles about the National Guard losing its gear and a lot of it ending up in Iraq. We could have looked at that from like, you know, an apocalyptic martial law situation, or a situation like, you know, global war. They're looting the nation of its prized artillery, so it won't be able to defend itself potentially. That's one view. We can maybe see where things are now. They can also build up a surplus of Homeland Security, domestic, civil unrest gear that is specifically for the population that would not be used against an actual real threat or military threat. I'm going to be speaking more on the other channel, outsidethebox.vhx.tv, over time about China. So as things heat up, you're going to see more coverage from me over there on the private platform. A lot of people don't understand why. Some people may resent it. The way I feel this platform out to be now, YouTube, is something that's going to be heavily moderated by China in the future, if not already. And so top button issues in the future as we go forward, regardless of how you feel about that, it's going to be issues regarding war, geopolitics, and what's going down on the ground. And I think that there is a threat to actual YouTube channels if they want to go deep down the rabbit hole with regards to what's really going on. It's okay to be I can give one example or another, but we don't need to go there, of people that use the World War III on a monetary level just to sell, sell, sell. But they're not really educating people about the background history. And I'm not saying I'm a scholar. I don't actually exactly have resources to work with to bring on crew to actually do that. There are people that do, and that do have the resources and the charisma and the popularity. They can literally fire up the masses to be looking in certain areas. If they were to do that, if they were to be like, take that motivation that they have for people to give them hundreds of thousands of dollars for crappy courses or something like that, and instead use that same drive and power of influence, because that is something that's very marketable, to be able to influence people. But are they influencing people in a good way? Or are they influencing people to be going round and round in a hamster wheel? But, I just want to bring this up as we approach the next global conflict, as we see them put women on the front lines and kind of change things. So if there was a draft, the women will be brought to the front lines. Bring the alternative lifestyle crowd to the front lines. I'm even afraid to say the name. I do think that there's a reason why some of that lifestyle is being pushed on us to confuse us. But I don't think that people should be demonized necessarily if they're living alternative lifestyles. It's really not our business. But, when we see these big government moves to take these extreme minorities of the population and say that they're going to make these major changes to the military, does that sound like a military that's aimed at winning? And for those people that live the alternative lifestyles, and for the minorities that are very proud to be standing alongside and within the military, and they have a sense of pride, maybe because they came from slavery, or they came from another country, their parents came from another country, and there is a sense of pride. They're no longer in the crap hole. They're no longer in the dictatorship. And I'm saying you can have pride for this country and the Constitution through other ways. I think that it's wrong for people to be brainwashed into thinking that the U.S. military are more superior to the people in general than regular people in society. And there are people that believe that, like a religion, that don't have religion. That there are people that served in the military, and then there's everybody else. There's the sub-citizens. And that mindset is alive and well. But the greater reality is, a lot of these people are bound by the killing and what happened in the killing fields. And so there is a brotherhood of blood that's been shed. And there is this skull and bones, the skull head symbolism, and the Punisher in pop culture is used also as something that's associated with this. If you've noticed that, sometimes certain pop culture memes actually mean something now in the real world more than they used to. And in closing, I want to say that I come from this from a perspective of love, not hate. The reason why I've talked about what I see coming with China is because I think the people in this country should be prepared. I don't think that it's to respond to people that are Chinese with hatred or Asian. Quite the opposite, although I can understand someone's concerns. I can understand someone being concerned with me maybe years ago. Someone going, well, Alex is covering this scenario, and I don't like the fact he's covering this scenario because it brings up bad feelings within me. That person may be thinking because of things they may have experienced in the past. And believe me, I've picked up on that, and I understand. But we still need to talk about the things that are taking place. I'm a person that has had to deal with that same type of anxiety with these manufactured threats since 9/11, and 9/11 directly impacting my heart, my body, my health in the unique way that it did. Can't change the fact that I was born, when I was born, who I was born to, the stamp, the name that was given to me, and the world that I was born into. But it seems to be one in which there's purpose to override the limitations and to seek the power within and the knowledge, and to be willing to share that in the face of danger. And see, in today's day and age, there is a real lack of awareness of the risk that people without guns are taking. And there is this backward sense of, well, if those people aren't actually picking up firearms and going overseas to countries that they're not natively from and partaking in a war their government is duping them in, well, they're not a real citizen. If they have actually been to those areas, their opinion really doesn't matter. And in today's day and age, folks, I've been through this for a long, long time. To be against the wars and even speak about them is the most unlucky thing you can do around people on the left or the right. Most people on the left and the right, they have their political agenda, they have their talking points, and the society as a whole, and let's go beyond ethnicity and even blaming one particular group. I just mentioned to you that there are multiple ethnicities, including minority groups, that have come together under the anti-them-ism because somehow or another the money that they are paid for the job done is enough to buy them. And see, there is a time and a place for someone to step forward, whether someone's overseas also participating in the killing or not, but maybe someone that's not involved in the killing, that didn't go overseas, to come forward and step in front of the crowd and say, stop what you're doing. Awaken. Awaken. This is wrong. You wouldn't want it done to you. And you would be fighting the enemy if it was taking place, an occupation was taking place. And people probably will be. And there's going to be ways in which there's going to be retaliations and ways in which drones and surveillance and Facebook data is probably going to be used. But a lot of people right now are too arrogant in their mindset and everything that's been given to them by the system to really understand the concept of what goes around comes around. And that doesn't mean that China has the moral superiority. But you know what? The world is going to be cheering on Russia and China. Russia and China have been allied for numerous years and practicing war games against the United States going back to 9/11. And people are for the very first time waking up to even news about that. So, you know, again, people have asked me, Alex, why? Why would you want to expose, and we didn't really get into this point, that there really is a hidden hand that's going to be controlling the next war? The answer: to prevent people from joining the military worldwide, those that can hear the sound of my voice. If there's a way that I've been influential in the other videos, which aren't even as important to me, MGTOW and other things, then this is something that can actually save lives. And that's where people laugh at me. And that's the point where I stop talking to those people. It's not funny. And it's not something to be mocked. The idea of providing information to people as far and wide as we can and facing the risks unarmed in some cases and not being on the front military lines, but really being on the right side of the real information battlefront in the real shift of ages. And it's speaking to people in their higher consciousness, trying to go beyond their animalism and speak to their soul and let them know maybe they have a soul worth saving, and maybe being that only person in their lifetime that's asking them to rethink their actions as they grab that AR-15 or as they sign their name on the dotted line to join the next conflict. I believe even Chinese, that elements the Chinese, if exposed to a translated piece of my work, could maybe get a deeper understanding of how their own country under Mao was set in a particular direction, the Western influence behind that, which was never really properly documented in any good documentary film. It's a part of history that a lot of people just jump over. And then explaining how even if they're innovative and intelligent, and we're not going to take that away from them, the militarization with the Western weapons and the electromagnetic weapons is a part of an artificial rise. And that's getting more into the Chinese government as opposed to Chinese wisdom and Chinese culture, which my soul is a deep affinity for some reason. Perhaps we don't live just once, as most people would rather believe, from the Orthodox religious to the atheistic nihilists. In many cases, you'll see the atheists and Orthodox religious folks on the same side of most matters, opposed to the spiritual individual who is asking people to look for the truth within. And that's what I ask you to look for. You know, I've talked a lot about Chinese parables like good luck, bad luck, and you can look up what that is. I'm not going to read it now, but there are certain things that may happen to us that we think are bad luck, only to find out that it was actually good luck. You may remember that I talked about being 20 years old, and I waited until I was an adult to actually get into a little bit of trouble, and then the brief addiction with heroin that was only in a few years until I found my path in life, and then left that experience behind forever. Well, there's a story in this. In the year 2000, only a year into starting to get into trouble, I'm already trying to change my life. My grandfather's trying to help me. And I went down to the Navy Recruiting Center with a former friend named Vincent. Vincent Caliendo, I believe. And, when I got involved in this stuff, a lot of my social circles completely changed. When I got involved in media, it was like a whole new wind. It was like that period before was just merely the storm that was brewing, that was creating the acceleration. And the life experience was not exactly very pleasurable. It was definitely some hard times growing up young and alone without parents in the city in which I was living during that year of 1999, but I grew up very fast, and I saw how powerful I was to pull myself out of a bad situation, but I could have sacrificed my own body, as I was weak enough mentally in 2000 to think that going to the military was my way out of my addiction. Now, I ended up finding recovery on my own, and even outside of jails, and when I finally found it, I did it on my own when it finally came. But there was a time in which I did not have that strength, and I was feeling so weak and vulnerable that I was willing to give my life away for the system in order to escape perhaps a pending criminal charge for possession. And, in the old days, people used to do that. And the judge would go, okay, we're going to put you over here, and you're going to go learn how to be a man. And see, 9/11 hadn't happened yet. I had not had my awakening yet. And so there was enough of that propaganda left over from my grandfather's generation and a desire for his love in a time-space reality where my father was not there and my mother was not there, and I thought that was the way. And thank God they said, no way, Jose, when I said that I had a pending criminal case. And that pending criminal case that would later be used to try to embarrass me by people that don't like my content was actually the thing that saved me from going into the military. One more story. 1 year prior to that, when I was staying with my uncle, Bruce, I was taken out to eat Chinese food by a guy that picked me up. No, he wasn't looking for a hooker. No, I wasn't turning tricks. Dude was a military recruiter, and he was in uniform. And so, again, it's 1998, 1999. 9/11 hadn't happened yet. I had not had my awakening. There wasn't that type of dominant hateful energy in the air post 9/11 with regards to certain people. So I didn't have that pre-programming that the world was like that. I had not yet had my red pill, but it was happening slowly but surely. But I was willing even then, when he was sweet talking me and we were eating Chinese food at that Chinese place on 99E right next to the old Ross IGA, which I think right now is the Safeway in Canby, Oregon, USA. And I don't know if my mom, I don't know if you know about this. I don't know if A-Man, you know about this, but it's like that was a time where had I not had those criminal charges, yours truly right now would have joined the U.S. Armed Forces. So thank God, good luck, bad luck, the Chinese parable, I was not meant to be a part of that system. Till the next video, folks, I think that's a good place to end it. God works in mysterious ways. Praise the Creator. I'm Alex Ansari, reminding you the path of the ultimate truth and place of power still lies within.